All right, I think we're live with a new link, hopefully.
How are people going to get it?
I'll give it to him in the chat.
Oh, nice.
You want to put it out? We could retweet it.
Hello and welcome to a special video here.
Yeah,
Talk
we're
about
live. We are
finals.
live. We are
All
live.
right, we're back. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're doing this without producer Paul, which may or may not have been a mistake. But anyways, we're back. Okay.
Am I giving the Fournette take for the third time? You guys are going to
Just-
make me say positive things about Fournette 3 times in a row?
Yeah, go ahead with a Fournette take.
All right. As much as people hate him, he scored 20 plus DraftKings points in each of his starts, the past 2 starts this year. I think he'd project for around 15. So he'd be better play than Singletary. I think he'd have more ceiling. And I think it's just good to get a play that even if he's not a total smash, if he's just like a decent play, he's going to be a lot lower owned than the other decent plays on a 4-gamer.
Yeah.
I was going to say, doesn't it seem like he's going to be like really, I mean, for a guy who like legit has a shot at 20 touches, and 4 or 5 catches, I mean, doesn't it seem like he's going to end up being really relatively low owned because he's in the last game. There's still like there's going to be a lack of clarity probably going up to game time with Ronald Jones. No one's going to feel comfortable about that. And then most people don't use late swap. So I feel like he's gonna be way lower owned than he should be for a guy that has a chance at 20 plus touches.
And the strat here I think is pretty clear. Fade Devin Singletary in tournaments if you want, and then what if Devin Singletary goes nuts, you need a contrarian stack on Sunday. If Devin Singletary has a bad game, then we're cooking. You have one of the KC guys, you have one of the Bucks guys as options as well. One other thing on ownership, obviously what looks best to me, and I'm sure to everybody else, is the Kansas City doubles with the bringbacks of Kareem Hunt, Hooper, Jarvis Landry, one or two of those. Obviously, that looks the best. Leone, do you think that Mahomes doubles with Browns bringbacks is just like so ridiculously chalky that like we can't even play it?
Yeah, Wiggins and I were talking before we went live, and that's what makes this slate really tricky is I think that's going to be the chalkiest build. And then if you get off that, you can't full fade that game. Like, I think that's nuts. And then you end up with pockets of every game, and you don't really end up with a really great stack, so to speak. And I think that's okay, but it definitely feels uncomfortable when building your lineups. I think I have one Mayfield stack that gets pretty big on that game, but I've tried to grab some pieces early. I think there's a chance that both Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams go pretty under owned. So I've been doing a lot of, mini correlations in that first game, even though the total is gross, but just seeing, if I get off to a good start, I can late swap accordingly. Like Devontae Adams could end up the lowest owned receiver of Tyreek, Devontae, Michael Thomas, and Stephon Diggs, right?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. He's just so expensive on a slate where the money is tight. Wiggins, what do you think about playing these Kansas City doubles that seem like so ridiculously chalky?
It seems like it's too chalky, right? I think you could maybe get away with it if you play a Baker stack and use them as bringbacks, but I don't know, man. I mean, that game is just going to catch so much ownership. As I said on the Established the Show, I think my favorite stack is Josh Allen to John Brown because I don't think that's really going to be owned a lot, and that's got pretty nice ceiling. I do like Baker, though, going back to that game, but I just wonder if it's so obvious that Baker, if Baker ends up being like 15% owned or 10% owned, I'm not really that interested. If he's 5% owned, then we're talking, but that seems a little optimistic on ownership.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Rodgers stuff, I dropped Rodgers ownership a little bit more and raised Baker ownership last night. You can see the full ownership projections on the site. Last debate I wanted to get to is this Cole Kamara versus Kelsey thing, because in the flex, there's going to be a lot of lineups where you have exactly 7,900 left. You can play either Kelsey or Kamara. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm leaning Kelsey right now. Silva, what do you think straight up Kamara versus Kelsey?
Sorry, I don't have my contacts in right now. I can't see anything. But I don't know. I think that, if people are building lineups and they can only have one of those guys, try to fit in both. And try to get there. I know you got to make some sacrifices, but
yeah.
I don't think that there's it's a complete coin flip. It's it's one of our Sunday morning questions that's just a total 50.1, 49.9.
Yeah. Uh, I lean Kelsey for absolute like lock for 10 targets in a better matchup than what Kamara has with a far better quarterback. Like I think that if you're talking about washed guys, I mean I think Breeze is, I know Underhill disagrees, but I think Breeze is more washed than Tom Brady. And so like on this slate, like I don't know. I don't feel the need to have Kamara, jam Kamara and Michael Thomas, but man, it's scary because I play Alvin Kamara like every single week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair argument, and I think there's also a fair argument to be made for Alvin Kamara facing the defense that has allowed the most receptions to opposing RBs, on the season. Historically, Kamara catches between 6 and 11 balls, like every time that he's matched up with Todd Bowles' defense. When you go against the Bucks, your offense's pass attempts have been elevated. I mean, the Bucks have faced the fourth most pass attempts in the league. I mean, I think this is a game where Drew Brees might throw the ball 45 times, and in a scenario like that, like how many targets is Kamara, likely to have? Like 9.
Yeah.
So I think he could catch as many passes as Travis Kelce. But there's a good argument to be made, I think, on both sides.
Is it possible Kamara ends up going decently under-owned in tournaments? Everyone that I've talked to just doesn't really want to play him.
Yeah, definitely possible. I mean, ownership projections on a slate like this, on smaller slates, is hard, and I think people are leveling themselves harder too. And that's like my main argument for still playing the Mahomes doubles in tournaments, is just like people are going to level themselves off it. That may be optimistic though, and they're actually not going to level themselves off it.
It feels like everyone wants to play the Chiefs, which is why, again, like I'm trying to get some Devontae exposure, and that I'm going to end up with a lot of lineups that probably don't look like tournament lineups, which is the opposite for me, but pretty spread out so that I can, get more Kamara than the field, get more Devontae than the field. And if the Chiefs bury me, they bury me, but it seems like everybody wants to go that way.
Yeah. We haven't talked about MVS and Lazard very much. People are asking us to compare those guys to Rashard Higgins. I prefer Higgins, but if it was a better matchup, I think I would say Lazard. I don't think it's a slam dunk for Higgins over Lazard, though. Any takes there, Wiggins or anything?
The numbers certainly say Higgins. I think Higgins will be owned more than the other guys because of the game environment. And I don't really love any of them. I'm trying to not play any of them in cash. I think if I'm going to get down to them, I'll just drop down to Josh Reynolds and use the money elsewhere. But frankly, I'd rather not play any of these guys. And what I was going to say about that debate between Kamara and Kelsey is that I think the best cheap plays, like the best guy in the 5K range, in my opinion, is Mark Andrews, and the best guy sub 4K is Austin Hooper. So I was looking at playing both of those guys in cash, and then that means you can't play Kelsey, but you're getting two of the cheaper options in. If those guys were wide receivers, we'd be all over it at those price tags. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. But I think there's a lot of thin margins here. It's a lot of decisions that are very close, and they're going to decide the slate.
Mark Andrews, I mean, I agree, could go under on because Hooper and Kelsey are so strong. Mark Andrews is an awesome play for sure. By the way, I hardly ever bet sides, but I had to ride with our Buffalo Bills, and so I'm on the Bills minus 2.5 here
Let's
today.
Go.
I mean, I don't really like to bet sides very much, but I figure it's the playoffs. We'll have some fun, and we'll bet on Josh Allen for max fun, and yeah, I just think the Bills are just the better team. Pretty up and down. You guys have any sides going today?
Max Fun is parlaying the Bills minus 2.5 with the Packers minus 6.5 and getting it up to plus 267 and getting rich.
Yes.
Somebody was telling me on FanDuel you can do same game parlays. Like you could do, like Josh Allen over passing yards and Bills minus 2.5. You know what I mean? Which sounds like fun, but I haven't looked at that yet. Any of you guys? What else do you guys have? Do you have any sides?
Same as Evan.
I got Browns team total over 22.5 on DK minus 125.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. I mean, the Browns have scored 40 in 3 of their last 6 games.
Dude,
they can score points. I think they're gonna get to 23.
Like what the protractor and TI-82 nerds can't comprehend is that like 4 of the Browns games this year were like completely wiped out by either
Right.
weather or not having wide receivers.
Yeah. What
Um,
happens to the spreadsheet when you look at those games in the middle of the season for the Browns? Leone, does the spreadsheet just like catch on fire?
Well, despite what Adam thinks about some of the math, we do account for things such as the weather and for what they've done more recently. So their pass rate over expectation, I think the first 11 games of the season, which includes those bad weather games, was only positive once. And it's been positive every single game since then, including the playoff game against Pittsburgh. So, like, I'm worried this Kansas City Cleveland game goes absolutely bonkers. I don't have enough of it, but it just kind of seems like that's playing into ownership. So I'm throwing for a twist, but I'm leaning towards, I certainly would not full fade that game, but I'm leaning towards maybe a couple big Baker teams, but probably being under Tyreek and Kelsey than the field, just because I think they're going to come in as the highest owned studs, which means I'm going to take pieces of all the other studs at lower ownership.
uh, a couple of people asking about Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley was not listed on the final injury report this week, which suggests he's closer to 100%, at least. And he's priced right next to Marquise Brown and next to John Brown. As the Buffalo guy, Leone, how do you feel about Beasley versus John Brown and Beasley versus Hollywood, fake Hollywood?
And I mean, Beasley's the safest of the ancillary Buffalo wide receivers just because the target share is going to be there. He's definitely going to get his. I know John Brown was frustrating last week, but I'm kind of going back to John Brown. I think, with the way the Ravens play cover zero, I'm going to get a little football guy here, but I think we could see some deep shots to John Brown in single coverage. And on this slate at this salary, it only takes him hitting one of those and then maybe a couple other catches to get there. So I like him the best of those. And I'm torn on Hollywood versus Andrews. I know Herzig was telling us, we should have Hollywood ahead of Andrews because the ceiling looks like it's been higher on Hollywood. The target share has been condensing on him the last few weeks. And there were excuses as to why that was happening when guys were out, but it keeps happening. They're manufacturing touches for him. So I see that. And then I also see, Tre'Davious White and the way the Bills play. And they just kind of been hurt a little bit more by tight ends. Makes me like Andrews a little bit more. So I'm really torn on the Baltimore scenario. But as you guys were just talking through Kelsey high, Hooper low, it does seem like Andrews is going to go overlooked. So I'm actually changing some teams right now to get Andrews in.
Oh, God. Last minute tinkering. What could go wrong? We got about 5 more minutes here on this show. If you guys want to put some questions in the chat, if we see some good ones, we will get to them. One other thing that I should note from an ownership perspective, I think the Bucks wide receivers, and specifically Mike Evans as the most expensive, the one who's had the injury, the one with the Marshawn Lattimore history, is probably be the most under-owned relative to his ceiling. And I mean, we talked about it, and Underhill, wrote a whole story about it, about how Marshawn Lattimore has owned Mike Evans. It doesn't mean Mike Evans can't win tomorrow. Mike Evans is such a freak talent. So I think that some of the Brady stuff is interesting. Outside of the big 3 guys, I know some people like Baker, and I get that. I think my favorite my 4th quarterback for tournaments would be Brady, not Baker. Nobody likes that. Okay.
Thanks, well, I'm just thinking how much you must hate this last game in a dome between Brady and Breeze, 2 old quarterbacks. Like that's just got to be grinding your gears, Levitan.
I know, but I love Mike Evans. Mike Evans is my boy, and I love Godwin. And I think there's also some like,
and Gronk is playing in the game too. I can't believe you cut that clip, by the way. The Gronk clip. Come on, man.
Yeah. I didn't cut it. Producer Paul did.
Okay.
I think there's maybe merit to role expansion for Gronk here a little bit, but I do think Brait is also in play too. He's only 2,900, and so I think both those guys are in play. But I don't know, Evan. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility for Mike Evans to beat up Marshawn Lattimore badly tomorrow night.
No, I mean, he's got a game before this, recent stretch. He had a game where he got the best of Marshawn Lattimore. It's just, I don't know. Marshawn Lattimore has always been the kind of dude that he'll have like a bunch of bad games, and then all of a sudden he'll just like get up to play Mike Evans or something, and then he'll like go on a 5-game rampage where he's like a shutdown corner. But that goes to speak to his inconsistency also. But I don't. It's a purely like bet on talent thing with Mike Evans. I mean, you know that the dude is an absolute stud. It's just he's got a bad history in this particular matchup.
Yeah, he's popping in the PSM big time though,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I'm on Mike Evans for sure. A couple questions. Can you fade Akers and Cash on DK? I wouldn't hate it that much, but it just for the roster construction standpoint, I don't think it makes a lot of sense because you're wanting to spend up. At least we're wanting to spend up on the MT, Tyreek, Diggs, Kelsey, Kamara types, and so Akers is going to fit a lot of those lineups, and so you're really likely to get 20 touches at 5,700. I think it's hard. From Tom, how do you sit on Demarcus Robinson in cash? I think that's a little bit thin, especially because he's 4,300. I haven't thought through it a ton though. Leone, would you have any interest in D-Rob in cash?
I mean, I think he's okay. I'd just rather play Higgins or Lazard or Reynolds. Like I think those three are all probably better than Robinson. I don't think he's like crazy far off, but he's probably fourth.
From Andrew, he says, does Leone have the worst job at ETR? He puts out projections, and then the rest of the staff calls him out. It's a fair question. What do you think?
Then I get a little hot and I make bad bets. So
he's sitting here defending the Michael Thomas target share from 2018 or 2019, and in the meantime, he's losing to Tyreek Hill. He's giving up like 4 points to Tyreek Hill. Yeah, from Garrett, thoughts on double tight end, really like Kelsey, Andrews, and Hooper. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be on that. I know I almost never give tight ends more than 100% cumulative ownership in the projections, but for this slate, I gave them like 120% on DraftKings. I think a lot of people are going to play two tight ends, mainly Kelsey, Andrews, Hooper.
Well, there are a bunch of good tight end plays on the slate. Yeah. I mean, even you drop down a couple tiers. I mean, we got Rob Tonyan, we got Jared Cook in that final game. We've got Gronk, who he does have 2 touchdown upside. You mentioned Brait. I mean, there are just a lot of good tight end plays on the slate. I bet we see a ton of two tight end lineups.
Yeah, I think if you got real saucy, you could throw in Higbee in that first game, and he'd be really low owned, and you could kind of late swap accordingly.
Yep, I like Higbee too. John Fitzgerald's asking the exact question I'm about to ask myself here in 2 minutes, which is, can you stomach Josh Allen in cash, or do we have to play Mahomes? Obviously the matchup for Josh Allen is way, way, way worse, but Josh Allen has just been so dominant this year. Rushing equity obviously is very, I know Evan likes to over on Josh Allen's rushing props, particularly with Zach Moss out. Wiggins, what do you think about the viability of Josh Allen? Do we have to get to Mahomes?
I think you want to get to Mahomes. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to play on. I mean, think of it this way. You could play Mahomes with Diggs, or you could play Allen with Kelsey. I think that's what people are probably looking at. Mm-hmm. I think I prefer the Mahomes-Diggs side. Do you guys have a lean there?
The thing is, like, Josh Allen is way more likely to run for a touchdown than Mahomes. You know what I mean? So like if I'm playing one quarterback and like you can play Josh Allen with Tyreek and Kelsey and hope that Mahomes doesn't run for one or doesn't throw one to D-Rob or whatever, and then you soak up most of it. I don't know, Leone, do you have a take on viability of dropping down to Josh Allen?
I think it's okay. It's always hard at quarterback because it's not like any of these guys are going to completely tank. The drop backs we're going to see from Josh Allen. Like, he's going to drop back to throw so much in this game. He has so much rushing ability that if it gives you the skill players you're absolutely comfortable with, I think, it's okay doing that, even if you're sacrificing, a projected point, which isn't a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. So I think it's okay, but I might be being a homer there.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to us. All the props that we were talking about are now like completely raised and steamed up on DraftKings. That Kareem Hunt one went up like 3 yards, and you have to lay like minus 150 now. But yeah, got to get on the props early if you guys want to bet them. Okay, final words. We're Bills fans today, boys. Final words. We are Bills fans. Any other final thoughts here? People want to know, Leone, if you're nervous for tonight. Are you melting down? and why do you care so much about how a bunch of guys who you have no affiliation or contact with and can't control how they play or their decisions? Why do you care so much?
Listen, if you had
exploit you and make it so that you buy their jerseys and all this,
spend all your money.
Oh man,
it's come full circle. I had season tickets for the entire drought. Okay, so from year one, the last year of the drought, I had season tickets, so I'm pretty invested. But I'm nervous tonight. I felt really confident last week. This week, definitely a little bit nervous.
Yeah, no, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna win. Okay. We have a lot of lineup changes to get to. You guys have a lot of lineup changes to get to. Enjoy the 4-game divisional slate. If you like this, hit subscribe. Let us know in the comments, and maybe we'll come back and do it again for conference championships Sunday next weekend. But yeah, we continue, especially in the off season. We're going to continue to put out free type content on YouTube. So be sure you are subscribed. And yeah. If we had Leone's graphics up here, we would have a smash the like button graphic as well. Okay. All right, that's going to do it. Enjoy it. Win something big for Wiggins, for Leone, for Silva. I am Adam. Good luck.